Hi, everyone. My name is AJ Retker, and I'm joined today with John Palladino, author of The Trials of Ashmont. So, thank you so much for um, coming on my channel today, John. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here after missing the Grimdark panel, unfortunately.
Yes, but you had a good reason by the sound of things. You were really under the weather by the sound of your
Yeah,
tweets back then. Yeah.
yeah. Unfortunately, it was like 100% a massive head thing. So I had like a cough, and mostly it was just I was kind of out of it. Needed a lot of sleep to catch up, and I didn't
Yeah.
do anything. It was really annoying.
Yeah, that's how I've been the last like 2 weeks. I just got back from New Zealand and like I've been so jet lagged. I've just been like sleeping constantly. It's like, oh,
Yeah, it's
I'm
terrible.
missing out so much on my life. It's like I haven't done any writing. I've just really gone like to my day job and then come home and sleep.
I
But
also haven't done any writing lately.
yeah,
Uh, it's been bad. I need to start working on book 3, I guess.
yeah, because you're editing the sequel right now, right?
Well, I'm supposed to be.
It's supposed to be. Yeah.
I got 240 pages through the edit so far, I think. But
Okay.
my brother and his fiance are visiting,
Mm,
and unfortunately, when they're here, it just seems like one, I'm really a lot busier, and I'm a creature of habit. So like, if I have a schedule, that's like my daily schedule, and I like to stick to it. And typically, my normal like writing or working time would be like around 5:30 p.m. ish to maybe like 9 p.m. ish,
mhm.
give or take an hour or two. And when they're here, I'm busy with them, so I don't get the work done then.
Yeah,
So
makes
I've
sense.
kind of been taking a very extended break, unfortunately,
Yeah.
because it's been a few weeks now since they've been here, and they're here until January 16th, I think. So they're here a long time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So once January hits, I really want to just nail all the work I want to do.
Yeah, that's the problem with the holidays. And Chris commented, "Hey John and hey AJ and John, hope we're both well."
Hi,
Thanks,
Chris.
Chris. Appreciate you tuning in. Um, so yeah, let's get started. I guess with the interview type thing. What's your inspiration for your book? Like, how did you come up with your idea?
Hmm. That's a good question, and there's kind of multiple answers. So, uh, do you mean the story for the book, maybe,
Yeah,
or okay?
yeah, the story for the book. Like, how did you come up with like, the plot and the characters and all that?
Okay, so when I was in high school, I came up with this magic system very briefly, which was like the my magic system is connected to your like life.
Mm-hmm.
So when you use magic, you're like spending minutes, days, hours, weeks, years of your own life. So you're aging in real time as you do these things. So the bigger thing that you do, the more you age. So I could create this massive, like, massive event. I could uh, maybe tear the earth in half. Well, not the whole earth. That'd be really overpowered. But like,
Yeah.
I could create this huge chasm, I guess, and that would maybe age me like a decade, maybe. And so then all of a sudden, I look like right now I'm 34. I don't know what I look like, but if I did that, then I'd look like maybe more like middle aged. Shit, do I look like middle aged? That um. So it like ages you in real life. You can even die after doing this. And so I came up with that idea when I was a kid, and I, it's always kind of just been in the back of my head, and I've
Mm-hmm.
been writing since I was in high school, so I really wanted to use that sometime. And when COVID happened, I ended up having to, well, I didn't have to, but I decided to quit my job because I kept getting kind of screwed at work, and I was kind of sick of that. And when I quit, I was like, man, this is like the perfect time to try and write. So I took that idea, and Joe Abercrombie, has always
Mm-hmm.
been a big like he's been my favorite author. So I really wanted to I really like his style. And so I wasn't trying to like emulate him, I guess, but and a lot of people say I'm not like Abercrombie, but I always advertise myself as like Abercrombie with hard magic.
Hmm.
Uh, whether or not you agree, I guess, is a different conversation, and I think that people have good points for both. But between Abercrombie and George R. R. Martin, I think those are my two big inspirations. And so I wanted to create like a big world with a lot of characters, and I wanted to really focus on uh, the character traits. So like I have one that has a stutter, and instead of just saying he stutters, like I actually write the dialogue with the stutter.
Hmm.
And I think that might irritate some people. I guess I don't really know, but I didn't want it to be like he stutters because I feel like, and I don't know if this is true for everyone, but when I read this person has an accent, but you don't write the accent, I honestly kind of forget they have an accent, which is fine. I don't think it matters that much, but uh, I didn't want people to forget, I guess, that he had the stutter. So I really wanted to like highlight that.
Right.
Um, I think I just went way off topic.
Yeah, no worries. Rants happen, but no, like what you said there, I totally relate to because I did the same thing with my characters in dialogue. Like if they have like my one character in Oathbreaker, my first book, Hamish has a speech impediment, and like he has S's on the ends of everything, and like my narrator for the audiobook hated me because he hates right like I said every time I say a word it has to have a s. I can't remember any specific lines. Like uses guys as ours my families. It's like instead of you guys are my family. Like it's just like absolute hell. My narrator crushed it. So kudos to Matt. And yeah, I really like I love when authors do that, especially as a reader. Because like again, like if they say I just stutter, it's like, oh, I guess I should have read that as a stutter in my head rather.
Yeah, and the problem with that is like, well, where is he stuttering? You
Yeah.
know, like, so that's like part of it. And I focused on D's and C's. I think are the two parts that like he really kind of stutters a lot with. But I had a question for you about your
Yeah.
audiobook narrator. You paid for that out of pocket?
No, both of mine were through ACX and they're royalty
Oh, okay.
shares. Royalty shares. So I found two really great oath breakers, really great narrators, and they both were like, "Yeah, we love the project. We won't take any money. We'll just split the profits." I'm like, "Cool, that's
Oh
fine
no,
with me." Yeah.
yeah,
So
I've been trying to figure out audiobook narration for the Trials of Ashmount because I keep getting people asking for it, and I'm like, I tried to go I'll just hire someone, and it was like quoted to be ridiculous. I was
yeah,
like, oh shit, which is fine. I'm not saying that audiobook narrators shouldn't get what they deserve for money, and they put a lot of time and work into it, and that's great. But I don't. It's like, do I spend the $4,500 I think was quoted to do the audiobook? Or do I take that $4,000 and do I publish my next like couple books?
hmm
So I don't really know how much royalties slash how much audiobook copies sell. So I really can't imagine that I'd make that $4,000 back super quickly.
yeah. I mean, I as much as I hate working with Amazon, ACX has been absolutely great for my audiobooks because they have like a huge like directory of all narrators. You listen to the samples and you can send them a message. Are you willing to do this for this price or willing to do profit shares or whatever? And I lucked out and was able to find some that were really good and that loved the project and were able to take it on for a split of the profits. So
Awesome. Yeah, I need to get one out there.
yeah, they're a narrator makes or break it. Like I was listening to the Lord of the Rings audiobook and I was like, I can't. Like Andy, like he was so monotone. I was like, it wasn't Andy Serkis, it was another guy. I was just like this is boring. Like Tolkien usually puts me to sleep because like it's like 4 pages of a tree, but like this is even worse.
Yeah, you're talking to a notorious Tolkien hater. I apologize to everyone who likes Tolkien, but Tolkien is not for me. The extended descriptions, yeah, they kind of put me to sleep.
Yeah.
I just don't care about what the forest looks like. It's fine for a paragraph, but not for a chapter.
Yeah. I love what he did for the genre. Actually digging into it, I'm like, yeah, this is a lot of extra stuff.
Yeah, and the story is not. I mean, let's be honest. The story is super old, so it's like we've seen it. It's no fault of Tolkien's, but we've seen it 100 times through other stories. So it's like going back now seems, I don't know, pointless, I guess, because I tried reading it when I was a kid, and I couldn't get past the writing of it,
Mhm.
obviously. But also, it's just like, okay, but it's just your standard fantasy story, which is great because back then it wasn't standard.
Mhm.
But nowadays, I don't. Well, I'm kind of the dick that can't read anything that's written before like the 80s because it's just I just can't jive with a lot of it.
Yeah, that's fair. That's like that's one critique I have of my favorite writer, who's Sapkowski, who wrote the Witcher series. I love it, but it's classic fantasy where it was like the main character's a super handsome guy and he's just a man whore, just lays pipe everywhere he goes. And I'm like, like that kind of bothered me a little bit about the series. But I mean, I overlooked it because I just love the characters and the story so much of that book. But I was just like, yeah, this, you can tell it's a little dated when you read it.
I haven't read The Witcher, but I've watched the show and played the games.
Yeah. Yeah, the games are what got me into the books. The show is, don't get me started. I'll fucking get on a rant about that. But yeah.
Yeah, I thought the show's it's okay, but I don't know the source material either, so I don't have a reason to be upset.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but now, I mean, I do have a reason to be upset now because recasting the main character, like
Yeah.
who, even if you're a fan of just the show, now what? Because I feel like the book lovers are pissed off, and now the show lovers are also angry because the recasting, and I just don't see how that show survives, honestly.
Yeah, I think it's done after 4 seasons, and honestly, yeah, personally, I think it's for the best because the way the direction the show is going, as a book lover, is quite irritating. But
Right.
maybe that's because I'm a Puritan. But John's here as well.
Oh,
He says, "Hail AJ" and "Hail John,"
sounds
and
good, dude.
yeah, Tolkien's not big on action scenes either. People forget how much fantasy owes to sword and sorcery pulps and paperbacks like Dragonlance.
Well, I also hear people. I think people credit Tolkien too much. I know this is kind of blasphemy. I hear them. The whole fantasy genre was Tolkien, but was it? Because I mean, Tolkien just kind of was inspired by what he was inspired by, and
Mm-hmm.
so I mean, honestly, I think it's just a chain. If we didn't have Tolkien, I think we would have had someone else that wrote something. It wouldn't have been Lord of the Rings, but I think we would have had something else, and I think we'd still have the fantasy genre. I don't think that he invented it per se. I think he did make it popular, and he did because fantasy has existed since we were cavemen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's yeah. You weren't lying when people said, "Oh, like, John's the king of hot takes." Be wary, be wary about some of this. But yeah, I mean, it's awesome. I do think Tolkien does get a little bit too much credit, but I mean, as well. But I mean,
And he
yeah,
deserves a lot of credit. I'm not
for
trying
sure,
to take that away.
for sure.
I just don't think that he was like the only reason. I think it. I think we still would have the genre. It would be different, I think, but I still think we'd have it.
Correct. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. But going back to your magic system, that's really like that. When you said that, I was like, oh, that's similar to what my magic system is. Of course, no one knows what my magic system is because in my first two books are very low magic. And then
Oh, okay.
as I'm churning out more books, I'm introducing the magic system more and more. But yeah, like have you played like the Cyberpunk 2077 game?
Yeah,
Or
the video game
yeah, the
or
video
the
game,
yeah.
or watch the show, the anime on.
I've not seen the show.
Okay, well, my magic system is similar to like the games is like and the shows, I guess, take on cyber psychosis. So it's like when they get implants, more susceptible they are to becoming insane, and that's kind of how my magic system works. The
Oh,
more
that's cool.
the more spells you use, the more and more closer you are to the edge before you completely lose it.
Nice. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, so your magic system just made me think of that. I was like, oh man, that's a really cool take.
Yeah, I think magic systems in general are a lot more interesting when you have a something that balances it out. So you can't
Yeah,
just like sling a bunch of like crazy stuff and like nothing bad happens. If there's like some sort of ramification, some sort of control, it makes it a lot more interesting because it makes it like a choice. It's like, should I do this now? I kind of need to, but if I do, this might happen.
right. Yeah, there's consequence to the action. It's not just consequence
Yes.
free. Did when you were coming up with the magic system, I guess when you were a kid, so I'm gonna guess probably not. You didn't use Sanderson's laws to kind of flesh it out. It was just something that you came up with.
Correct. I don't even know if Sanderson was writing when I came up with this magic system. Uh, that's a really interesting thing to wonder. Now, to be fair, I have seen some of the Brandon Sanderson videos, so I do know what you're talking about. And he has really good videos on magic systems and things to do. I think, interestingly enough, I kind of naturally did a lot of his rules anyway.
Right.
So I didn't actually. Sorry, I'm a little distracted because I'm Googling Brandon Sanderson right now. So his first published book was 2005.
Okay.
So I graduated high school in 2007, and I figured this magic system out a few years before then. So it might have been right before or right when he published Elantris.
Okay.
I don't know. So definitely he was not a big name in fantasy.
Right.
But yeah, I really agree with his take on magic systems. I like the hard rules. It's not that I hate soft magic, it's just that I don't like the unknown. And a lot of times the soft magic writers use it as a get out of jail free card, which as a grimdark lover, is not something I like, but I appreciate that some people do. And I think that's cool. I think like Gandalf is a really good example of that. Like soft magic, you don't really know what he can and can't do. He comes in and kind of saves the day, and you're kind of still wondering what happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of soft magic either. I think, especially in our genre of grimdark, I think it just doesn't really fit. I think
Yeah,
there needs to be consequences, just like there's consequences to decisions that the characters make or anything else.
right. Yeah, exactly. If you don't have consequences with your magic system in grimdark, that's a really interesting idea. A grimdark book with a magic system with no consequences. Like, how would that feel?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Yeah, if there's any authors that want to try their hand at that little world, feel free. I mean, I think that's a little too daunting for me, but mainly because I'm a little bit of Puritan. I'm stuck in my ways. I like my hard magic.
I honestly don't think I could write a book with a soft magic system because I need to know how it works. Like, I guess that's the beauty of soft magic is that you don't need to, but
Mm-hmm.
I'd be like, well, what can they do here? And then I think I'd be too stuck in my thought process of like, why didn't they just use magic to do this and get out of this situation?
Yeah.
Uh, I don't know if it's not like defined. I guess it'd be difficult to write about. I don't know. This just seems so impossible to me. I don't know how people do it.
Bo's here as well.
Hi,
Evening.
Bo.
We got an amazing little group of people here. Especially that's the one thing I found out. I mean, you're relatively newer than me at least. I'm still like pretty new in the author world, but I found like the book community's been super accepting and just like anyone champions anyone. Has that been your experience, or you had different experiences?
I'm honestly shocked and stunned. I published the Trials of Ashmount on June 1st of this year, and I'd say the first month I didn't have much of like a champion thing, like you said, but I also wasn't on Twitter and I wasn't really in the community. I was in a couple Facebook groups for writing, and writing groups are not super supportive of people that have finished the writing part
Mm-hmm.
because they're all focused on writing and getting their own
Yeah.
books done, and no one, I mean, I think I sold 100-ish copies in the first month and a half, and that was all like people I knew, like friends, family, people in the writing groups. But I was also kind of a established figure in the writing group that I'm talking about mostly, Fantasy Writers Forever. I
Mm-hmm.
was an admin there for a long time, and that was like a group of 12,000 people. So,
Wow.
a couple people supported me, which was awesome, but I didn't really get any support other than, this sounds bad. I don't mean this to sound bad. What I'm saying is I didn't see much support outside of people like just buying it, which is great, and I love that people bought it. But what you're talking about in terms of people like promoting it and sharing it and talking about it, that didn't really happen until I got on Twitter. And when I got on Twitter, the only reason I even went on Twitter was because I entered the SPFBO
Mm-hmm.
contest by Mark Lawrence, and I noticed that the group I was in, I kind of wanted to befriend the judges, not because you can't like fake, you can't befriend them and get anywhere with it, but because I wanted to get into the community more.
Mm-hmm.
But I noticed that they were all on Twitter and they weren't on Facebook, and I was like, God damn it, I don't want to go on Twitter. I hate Twitter. And I really had this huge negative perception of Twitter because you hear about all the like cancellation campaigns and like the
Mm-hmm.
drama and everything that happens, and whether or not you support that, I don't care. I just didn't want to get involved in any of like the drama or the politics, or uh, but surprisingly, when I got involved and got into the book community, that wasn't really happening, and I haven't seen it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of followed the judges that were in the group that I was in for the contest, and I started following a few other people, and then I started following some other reviewers, and I just started talking to these people, and all of a sudden, uh, a few people reached out to me and asked for review copies, and I said sure, and they reviewed it. And once those reviews went out, I don't know what happened. It was just like all of a sudden the community had accepted me. I guess I don't. It was weird, and then I had all these friends and started talking to all these people, and it was cool. And so I think it's been a ridiculously supportive community. I'm shocked at how well uh, I've done so far personally as a debut author. I just My goal for the year, like for 1 year, was to sell 400 copies, and the only reason I had that number was because I knew this other indie author who published, and they had made it a year with their debut,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he said that he had sold 400. I was like, well, if he can do 400, I could do 400 in a year. So my goal was 400. And man, I blew past that after, I think I hit that in 4 months, which is insane to me.
Yeah.
Uh, Now I'm at like 1100 maybe. I don't really know. But of course, so this is including some free promotions and stuff. I think
Yes.
I've actually sold, like people paid me money for uh 500 to 600 copies now is my is my guess. I don't know for sure. It's
Mhm.
somewhere around there. It's like half, a little bit more than half. So I think I'd guessed around 60% of the copies out there were actually bought. And that's huge. That's a lot for your first book, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, you post little updates on Twitter, and I'm always astonished that you're like the reception, how well your book's doing for a debut author. I'm and like it's making me like I gotta like get this book off my TBR and get it like in front of me and like read it. But like I got so many books. I got Christopher Brenning's new Wrathbringer
I just
on
read that.
there. Yeah, I've heard it's so good, and I love the first one too. So
Yeah, I liked I think I was more down on the first one than a lot of people. Like I think I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 rounded up to a 4. Um but I liked the Wrathbringer a lot more uh just in terms of the story, and I thought his writing really got a lot better in the second book.
yeah,
I had some criticisms of some of the first book, but it really improved in book 2.
yeah. Hellborn King, he had me right up to the ending, and then the ending's when he lost me. I'm like,
Oh
like
yeah.
he just took like that little. I don't want to spoil anything, but he took like a little left turn. I'm like, all right, but I'm committed now to the books and to the series. I need to know how it ends because maybe it all ties in together and like makes sense after that. But yeah, so I think I gave it like I think 3.5 as well, or 4 stars. But I'm excited to see the next one. But another question I had for you is that why did you like decide to become put the pen to paper instead of just like I guess mulling around like so many people do? So many people just like will have the idea in their head but never actually put pen to paper. I guess what made you finally sit down at the keyboard and like I'm going to type out the story?
uh hmm. Okay, so that's kind of a multifaceted answer.
No worries.
So I've written since I was in high school. I mentioned that earlier. I actually finished. I wrote an entire book in high school. I finished a book in high school, which I guess is a much bigger deal than I realize. A lot of people are like, "I can't believe you did that." I never really thought about it. What happened was I was writing, and my best friend at the time was like, no one ever actually finishes a book. You realize the stats on that are like awful, right? And I was like, I'm gonna finish a book just to shut you up. So I wrote a whole book, and it was trash, of course.
Yeah.
But I I think I finished that when I was like 17. So most of my life, I've always had that confidence that I could like write a whole book because I'd already done it. So that was never actually a concern. And when I first started, so from high school till now, and I'm 34 now, so it's been since I finished that book like 17 years of on and off writing just
Mhm.
random crap. I never got anywhere because I never really was trying. But when I quit my job in COVID, I it's always been my dream to be like an author, just to write for a living, because I hate going to work.
Mhm.
Like I just hate it. I hate dealing with bosses. I hate dealing with customers. I hate dealing with you have to be at work tomorrow at 8 o'clock, and that's that. I just don't like that. So when COVID happened and I quit my job, I was like, okay, I have some money saved up. If I can't get a job right now if I wanted to, because it was COVID, it was the height of like everything shut down. No one was hiring. So it's like, this is the best time to try, right?
Yeah.
So I started writing and I got 80,000 words, I think, of the first draft written. And I posted on one of those writing groups and I was like, hey, can people critique the first chapter and be honest, like tear it apart? I asked them to be like the biggest jerks, just the worst assholes. Like I was like, tear it apart. And they did. Oh my God, did they just rip it apart? They told me everything that sucked about it. And when I realized how much of like the writing techniques I didn't know, so I was using a lot of adverbs. I had a lot of like passive voice. I had a lot of this is an argument for a different day, I guess, but the dialogue tags, I had a lot of like they they say you should only use like said and asked. A lot of people disagree. as a reader, it's weird because as a reader, I was always against that. I hate
Mhm.
seeing the repeated said. People say it's invisible. I wholly disagree until I started becoming a writer. And now that I do that, I guess now I notice when people don't do that. So I think that's more of a writer problem thing. But anyway, uh, and there was a bunch of other techniques that like I didn't realize. So I ended up editing the 80,000 words. I went back and rewrote that before I finished the book. Bad idea, guys. Don't do that. But it worked for me. I know that's like a very dangerous game to play because most people, if you start editing before you finish your draft, you're not finishing your draft. But I was really determined. So I went back and I did it and I posted again for feedback. Actually, I think in between that period, I actually bought the pro writing aid.
Mhm.
And so I ran it through that, and man, that changed my writing so much. It's so much more clean and polished. When I sent it to my editor, they were like, "Wow, this is like really pretty polished." I was like, "Yeah, I used Pro Writing Aid, and that fixes a lot of issues."
Yeah.
So I'm a strong advocate for that if people want a good writing program. And so I think COVID is really the answer to your question as to why I decided to do the writing. It's just it was a good opportunity. I've always wanted to be a writer, and I had been uh, it was just the perfect opportunity. It was like if there's going to be a time to try it, right now is the time because I'm one of those people that I can only focus on like one thing at a time. I used to go to college and
Mhm.
I worked at the same time and I noticed I could only really put my effort into one of those things. I could only like really focus on college and then work would suffer, or I could focus on work and then I'd fail out of college. So when I realized that, I've kind of taken a different approach to life, which is like I'm going to try and um, work on just the book instead of trying to like work and write because
Mhm.
I can't do that. I don't have the mental fortitude. So knowing that I had a long time with COVID, it just gave me that peace of mind to just focus on just the writing.
Right.
And so I did that. And now it's been successful enough that I think I can just keep trying because I'm not making a lot of money.
Yeah.
But I sell it for 99 cents. And you'd make like 20 cents on royalties. So I think on average, I make about $100 a month. Can't really live on that.
No.
But we do raise and sell dogs here. So I kind of live off that at the time or for the time being. And I'm trying to just write a few more books and see if it's like if I can justify continuing.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know if I can. So we'll see.
When I was down in New Zealand, I hung out with Ryan Cahill, author of
He's an awesome dude.
he is an awesome dude. I mean, he was so hospitable. I mean, he was on the channel once, and then when he found out I was coming to New Zealand, he's like, "Oh man, come to my city. You know, I'll show you around. You can stay with me, whatever." I was like, "Holy shit!" Like, okay, this guy is really. And they showed me around. I do have a bone to pick with him because he did make me hike a mountain in his town, and I was 100% not prepared for that. And he's like, "Oh yeah, like my girlfriend and I climb this or my fiance, I guess it is now, climb this like every weekend." I'm like, "Fuck you!" Like, I'm from the flat prairies, man. Like, I'm dying. I don't do inclines. I do flat long distances.
That's funny.
But yeah, he's telling me about being a full-time author, and I'm like, yeah, like, and then he's showed me the other side of it where it's like it's so stressful because their deadlines are hard now when you're not, because like if you miss the deadline, you miss your mortgage payment, and then you don't have a house. And I'm just like, yeah, and for me, that was something I never considered because I was like, I want to be a full-time author. And then I just like, I never really thought about that side of it where the
Yeah,
deadlines are like super concrete.
I actually met him in the Fantasy Writers Forever group. This is one of those times when I can be like, I knew him before he was famous. um, so actually, I've talked to him a few times about like marketing and getting out there, and
Mhm.
he's kind of helped me with a few things like that. Like I had my book priced at $2.99 for a really long time. I think for the first 2 months maybe. And he was like, dude, you really should lower that to 99 cents and you'll see a huge uptick. And I was like, okay. And as soon as I did that, oh my God, crazy how many more people buy it. And so that's been awesome. So he's a great guy. I've read his first book. I need to read the next one. And I think I read the short story too. Or the novella, I guess it is. I don't remember. The Fall, I think it's called.
Yeah, he's an absolute juggernaut. The amount of books he crushes out is insane.
Yeah, I don't understand how he's still writing his third book right now.
Hmm.
This is madness. I would never do this. Writing his third book, hasn't even gotten it edited yet, and he has the date for I think he had the pre-orders up, and he has the
Yeah,
dates and everything. And I'm like, oh my God, I could never do that. Talk about stress.
yeah,
Uh, I don't want to announce a date until the book is edited fully, right? Like he's behind me when we're talking about where he is in the writing and editing process. With like, I have my book 2 fully written, the first draft. I'm halfway through editing it, and I don't have a date out there.
no, yeah,
No, thank you. I don't want to do that. I'll wait until it's finished and then I'll do that. That's brave. That takes balls.
yeah. That takes a lot of balls, uh, for sure. But another question I have: your podcast is just recently been launched. You and I'm forgetting your co-host's name.
Philip Overby. He's
Right, because
the admin of Grimdark Fiction Readers and Writers,
yeah,
which I think you're in that group.
yeah, I'm in that
A
group,
moderator
and
there. Yeah.
yeah, I knew the name. I was like, just from where? But yeah, what kind of made you two like decide we're gonna do a podcast?
Okay, so way back when I was first joining Facebook groups, I I was in a couple of the writing groups. I think Fantasy Writers Forever was like the first one that I really got into. And somewhere along the line in that group, somebody recommended Grimdark Fiction Readers and Writers. And so I jumped into that group and I noticed that group is full of like a lot of heavy hitters when it comes to like authors and stuff. And I didn't know Phil, and he posted in that group one day asking for if anyone was interested in like role playing. I can't remember what game it was. It might have been Blades in the Dark. Could have been another obscure like weird thing. And I'm not someone who likes to role play with random strangers online. Just like here's a group, join it and play. I hate that actually. But I thought it would be a good opportunity because I knew that Phil was like a big voice in the community. So I have no shame in saying I jumped on that opportunity just because I was like, oh, maybe I can make a good friend here and get more into like the community or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started playing, and the group that we started playing with was awful. But we really gelled like super well. And when that group fell apart, thank God, because it was awful. You don't realize how bad it was. The people were just weird. I think he found most of them in like a random Discord group. Uh,
Mm.
and it was just strange. There were some weird people. Uh, and so once once that group got canceled, we kept kind of playing by ourselves and trying out some different games. And I guess we just kind of became really good friends after a while. And just we're talking about potentially doing a podcast, and he really likes the role playing type aspect. So he wanted to have a segment in the end of the podcast where we took our weak like characters and put them against really strong D&D enemies and
Mm-hmm.
see how long they could last. And so that's kind of the gag part of the podcast, I guess, where every episode we get murdered brutally by something in the end. And then the rest of the episode before that is like a specific topic that we feel like talking about. And the whole podcast is really focused on everything fantasy and sci-fi. And we just both really like fantasy and sci-fi, and we talk. So we'd play role-playing games, and then afterwards we'd just be on the call like we are right now, you and I, just audio, but we'd be talking to each other, and we'd go for an hour or two just talking about whatever. And one day we were like, we have just really good chemistry. Why don't we just make a podcast? And that's kind of how it happened.
Nice. Yeah, I'm always scared about making a podcast. I'm just like, man, no one cares what I think. No one gives a shit about what AJ thinks. But you'd be surprised, because like I've had a lot of people tell me, "Oh, AJ, you should try a podcast." So I mean, good on you and Phil for getting over it. I'm sure you guys had that mental barrier as well.
Uh-oh. I had a hiccup there, I think, with the internet.
Okay, no worries. Yeah, I was just saying, was that a mental barrier, I guess, for you? Saying like, who am I to start a podcast, or who cares what I think? Or did you just say, fuck it, like I'm gonna make a podcast. I don't care if I get 1,000 monthly listeners or 0.
Yeah, I originally I had a lot of apprehension appearing on any podcast, just because I'm like a nervous wreck. I'm like, oh god, people aren't going to like me.
Yeah.
But now I'm fine with it, perfectly comfortable, and yeah, I don't know how many people really care about what I think or how about that podcast, but it's it's fun, so
Yeah.
we do it. I think we only have 2 episodes published now, but I think we've recorded like maybe 10.
Okay.
And some of them are really fun, and it's been a blast to do.
Yeah, I really want to check out the House of the Dragon one that you guys just posted.
Oh yeah, that was a fun one. We kind of took a deep dive into the show right after we watched it, and talked about all the things we liked and what we didn't like, and that was a lot of fun to do that one.
Yeah, I really like the show, but again, I have a few critiques that I'm pretty vocal about.
Yeah, we both were super high on the show for sure, but definitely had some critiques as well. Actually, Chris in the chat, I did some podcasts with him and Steve from Steve Talks Books about House of the Dragon. That was fun.
Yeah, Steve's a good guy for sure.
Yeah, Steve's great.
But back to you. How do you define grimdark? That's the question. I know every grimdark author gets that question, and it's almost dreaded at this point.
I don't mind it, but I do know that my definition of grimdark is not the same as a lot of people's. I'll say a lot of the same trigger words that people will say about grimdark, but I don't think that maybe I have such a strong opinion. I call a lot of things maybe grimdark or grimdark-like that people might not. So the first thing is morally gray characters. I think bad people that do good things, good people that do bad things for, motivation and reasons that make sense. You can do bad things as a good person to get a good result or something like that. I think my biggest thing though is realistic consequences. So if something bad is going to happen, then the something bad happens. You don't always have to go through with it. You can always, it doesn't always have to happen. But if you don't feel like there's realistic consequences in the world, I just don't think that it's grimdark personally. A lot of people say that the world needs to be like bleak and hopeless. I'm a very strong proponent against that. I don't think that for me, the world needs to be super bleak necessarily. And to say that it needs to be hopeless, I think I'll be honest, and this might be a hot take. I think that's laughable. I think that even in the darkest of dark books, characters have hope. because if they didn't, they wouldn't do anything. So, I mean, even Michael Fletcher's Beyond Redemption, which is like the most grimdark of grimdarks, the characters still have hope that they're going to do something, or they wouldn't be doing it. You know, so I am strongly into like I think there can be a lot of hope. There can be a lot of good in a grimdark book if it makes sense. So I don't think that everything has to be like hopelessly dark. But uh, yeah, if I feel like the main characters are in danger, I just think that's like another aspect of grimdark too. Because
Mhm.
there's a lot of books out there where you just know no one's going to die. You're like, okay, this person's making it to the end. If
Yeah,
I feel like that, I don't really consider the book grimdark.
right. And I mean, I to toot my own horn here for a minute. Uh, I recently did just get a review, and they're like, and one of the reviewers like, I didn't know if any of these characters were going to make it to the end of the book, and I was like, yes, I did something grimdark. It's resonating with people. That's awesome with my latest book. So I wholeheartedly agree with that. I hate plot armor for characters, and that's one of my big grievances with Game of Thrones. Is like when Jon Snow's going to the Battle of the Bastards. It's like, you're not gonna die. You're gonna be just fine.
Yeah, I think plot armor can be very annoying. Uh, the funny thing about Grimdark, so I advertised the Trials of Ashmount as Grimdark,
Mhm.
but I've gotten some reviews that are like, "This is so dark. This is such a dark Grimdark book. It's amazing, whatever." And then I've got other reviews that's like, "This isn't Grimdark, and it's very okay." And or you know, and I've also gotten horrible reviews too. But
Mhm.
the two that I'm focusing on for this is the difference in like what is grimdark and what isn't. And it's funny because some people are like, this wasn't even grimdark at all, and other people think it's like ridiculously dark, and I don't think it's ridiculously dark. Um, but I don't shy away from doing some nasty, like horrible things.
Mhm.
And you know, so I call it grimdark because I want to warn like Wheel of Time fans.
Yeah.
Like there are some bad things in this that happens, and the people that don't think it's grimdark might maybe think that book two is a bit better in that regard. Uh, I think if you don't think that my style or tone is grimdark in book one, then you might just not think I'm grimdark and for the series, and that's okay. It's weird because everyone's definition is so wildly different that
Yeah.
I have people tell me that like Joe Abercrombie and George R. R. Martin aren't grimdark, and that shocks me because they without them, I don't think we would have. I know it originated with Warhammer, but like it didn't really. I don't know if it became popular because of
Popularized. Yeah.
Warhammer. So I don't think that it would be the genre that it is today without Martin and Abercrombie. And I think Glenn Cook is also another one that's cited
Yeah.
as uh, one of them. So I just can't stomach the idea that people think that Martin and Abercrombie aren't grimdark because of some of the things that happen. They both, if they can get me to actually have a visceral reaction when I'm reading something, that's super rare for me in general. If you can actually make me feel like a gut punch when I'm reading something, I'm like, oof, this is grimdark.
Yeah. I love it. I love it when I get a reader just says like, I hate, like, I got a text from one of my friends from Oathbreaker, and he's like, what the hell? Like, I don't want to spoil anything, but like, to get a text about my book, I'm like, yes, I broke someone's heart. That's awesome.
I have, yeah, I have a specific chapter that people always like DNF or they continue.
This
And
one by chance?
I uh, I don't know the page number myself, surprisingly enough, but I think it is right then. So yeah, probably right there. Uh, and I get a lot of messages about that. You did what? I'm like, oh, it's funny because like you said, I don't want to spoil anything,
Right.
but it's just funny that I get some people who are like, I can't continue this book. I'm sorry. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. I'm surprised by that. And other people are like, whoa, that was awesome. I can't wait to read more. But the thing that surprises me are the people who can't continue it, because that specific scene, when I wrote it, in my head, I didn't think anything of it. I was like, okay, this is a very it's a very bad thing to happen, but the way it was written, I don't feel like I lingered on it. I don't feel like I glorified it. I don't think I went too far into detail about it. So I didn't even think that it would be a problem. It didn't even occur to me that I should warn people about it. I thought it was the most like PC way to do it without
Mhm.
being like really. I said PC. I meant PG.
Yeah.
My bad. So yeah, it was horrible, and it was really crazy, and it was supposed to be a big surprise, and it was supposed to be brutal, but I didn't think that it was as dark as a lot of people seem to find it, and so
Yeah.
that surprised me.
Yeah. I have a similar story to that too, where my latest book, Season of Kings, um, the first chapter, it starts grimdark. Like my scene for that is the very first chapter, because I had people complain about Oathbreaker. Like, I didn't know what kind of book it was, because the Oathbreaker starts off happy classical fantasy and then basically just hard left turn into grimdark territory. And I lost a lot of readers by that. So I made a conscious decision. If you pick up this book, you're either going to love it or hate it in the first 10 pages. And I had so many people text me, like, I don't know if you know who Holly Tinsley is.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, when she bought Season of Kings, and like the day it came out, and she tweeted, "This is probably the grim darkest book of 2022." I'm like, holy shit, that's big. But I've had so many people message me like, "Why the hell did you start your book like this? I can't finish it." I'm like, okay, you're only 10 pages in, and it's only getting worse from there. Like,
Yeah.
if you can't muster that, like, then move on. Like, my books aren't for you, essentially, because I had a lot of people DNF my first book because of that. And I made a lot of mistakes in my first book. I don't know. That was one of my next questions for you. Is like, is there anything you'd go back and change in your debut?
Hmm. Would I change anything? It's a really good question. I don't think so. Um, some people might say you should have changed the part where everyone DNFs. But I don't think so. I wanted to have that in there. Maybe I would have hmm, it's a hard question. I mean I definitely could have improved the book in terms of like some of the writing maybe, and also, I got the book edited and I switched editors because the first editor was really expensive. So now I have Sarah Chorn, but the first book, there's a couple edits that I let through that I really regret now um, changing. So
Mm,
I probably would have had more of like a backbone in terms of being like, I can't change that. Um, so like little things, nothing
hmm.
super major. Uh, I I just think that I really miss some of the things that I took out.
Yeah.
There was a chapter I took out at I really liked. I'm not sure if I feel like I miss it enough where I wish it was still in it, but I do think it added a little bit to one of the arcs. But mostly it's like little things. So like
Yeah.
just the way that the editor changed a sentence or stupid things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. But going back, sorry, I had a point before
Oh,
when I
okay.
was talking about my book. The first scene was
Okay.
that, yeah, like you, I thought it was very PG. Like, it didn't go into extreme detail. It was quick and easy, and just and it's, I always find it fascinating that that's what people DNF over. But I mean, everyone has their tolerances and
Yeah, I'm
preferences.
weird. I don't have any like Oh my God, this was in it. I'm not gonna read it. If if I feel uncomfortable, I'm happy because I don't usually feel anything. So if you make me feel like, oh my God, that was gross, or oh my God, that is so cringy, or oh my God, I hate him, I'm
Mhm.
super happy. I can't wait to read more because it's rare when I feel anything when I'm like reading a book, I guess. I usually just read and I'm like, okay, it's fine, it's interesting, it's good. But if you can actually make me like feel something, then I'm super, super happy.
Yeah,
And it doesn't matter what that feeling is, just anything negative, I love.
yeah. And then John brings up Christopher Browning, who I hope to have on the channel someday because I really like his book. But yeah, he does grimdark well. Manages to always have a connective tissue of hope for every character that keeps it from being bleak. And I think that is the secret to writing good grimdark is, like you said, have that connection of hope. Because if there is no hope, the characters have no motivation.
Yeah, I think that even if their situation is hopeless, the character should at least have hope, that they can maybe one day get out of it or do something about it. But if you don't have any hope and you know for a fact that you can't do anything, you're not going to have the will to do anything because what's the point? There isn't one.
Yeah.
You kill yourself, right? Like, or you just would stop acting because it wouldn't make sense to do anything if you know for a fact that you can't actually do anything about it.
And that is like I love my first book. I wouldn't change a world because every mistake I made, every cardinal sin of writing I broke. Because I have no formal writing training. I didn't join the groups till after I published. Like I was like the thing is like a lot of broken cardinal rules in Oathbreaker. But that's one thing I love is my main character Mario because he flip flops that hope meter from being I'm gonna save everyone like this is pointless. I'm just gonna sit down and die. Fuck this. So I love that you said that. That was just like, yeah. And I've had people complain, like, why didn't Mario do this? It's like, because he honestly thought there was no fucking hope. Like, have you never been out of hope before? Like, why would you try something if it was hopeless?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. I think it sounds like your first chapter is pretty pretty dark. For wait, was that Season of Kings or was
Yeah,
that
Season of
okay?
Kings is the first one where it hits the ground running. And like I'll spoil it because I don't, it's not super bad. It's a character killing 3 dogs.
Ooh, you broke a cardinal sin. You killed animals. One of my
Yeah.
favorite things to read, and also a goal of mine is to just kill animals now because of how many people get upset over it. I think it's ridiculous. It's not real. It's an animal. It's not that big a deal, guys.
Yeah.
That's my hot take.
Well, I grew up in rural Saskatchewan in Canada, and I hunt. I've been hunting since I was 12 years old. So like death and animals is like, and I grew up on a farm. Shit dies all the goddamn time.
Yeah, I didn't grow up on a farm, but my mom did, so she has that mentality. And but throughout my entire life, we've raised dogs. I
Oh
mentioned
yeah,
that earlier, but we've had so many of them die tragically that it's like just I'm so used to that. So when I was raising dog, well, I wasn't. My when my mom was back when I lived in Vermont when I was a kid. Uh, we raised dachshunds, the wiener dogs.
yeah, yeah,
Those fuckers will kill each other, and that happened several times. Um, they actually murdered each other. I'm talking they were sisters from the same litter, and they killed each other. Like it's ridiculous what they did. Um, and then we lived right next to a road, so a couple died from getting hit by a car.
mm.
I had a couple cats that went missing because they probably got killed by something in the wild. Uh, Basically, any pet that we've ever had seems to have died in a horribly premature way. And actually, just recently, the neighbors' dogs have killed two of our dogs. It's a whole nightmare. So I've also been around animal death constantly, and I don't understand uh like mourning an animal that was a pet for like more than 30 minutes, I guess. That might make me cold or weird. but when you're around it all the time, I guess you just don't think about it the same way. I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh, but you said you hunt, so it's like that's even more of like an active role in it, I guess, of seeing the death and experiencing the death. So it's probably even less of something that affects you, I guess, than it does me. I don't know.
Yeah. Like we've had horses run through a barbed wire fence and they slice their leg open. And of course, because we're in the middle of butt fuck nowhere, the vet's not going to come. So it's like, all right, you gotta put the animal out of its suffering. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, it's either me or my dad who have the stomach to do it, because no one else really did. Everyone kind of is like, oh, I don't want to put down my pet. And it's like, well, they're dying either way. You might as well make it quick.
Yeah, the slow death is not fun, obviously. Uh, so yeah, I don't get bothered by animal death in books, and
Yeah. Yeah, this conversation took a really morbid turn between two grimdark authors. Who would have guessed?
you know, it's
uh,
uh, it's what we do, I guess.
yeah, it's par for the course, especially with our genre. But another question I had: what made you decide to go with self-published rather than trying to find an agent and go through the traditional route?
It's a very simple answer. I did try to go traditional. I took I think one afternoon I did like the research
Mhm.
for querying agents, and I made like a list of people I wanted to submit to, and then I think the next afternoon I started submitting to them. But dear God, each agent has their own annoying requirements, and it takes forever to like do it, and then you have to wait for like 6 months, and like 80% of them actually have never responded to me still.
Mhm.
So yeah, I did like one afternoon of actually sending emails, and then I think I did another afternoon somewhere else. And it was just such a pain in the ass that I said I'm not even gonna bother. What I'm going to try and do is pull the Evan Winter, get successful at self-publishing, and then they'll come to me, and then maybe I can get published. Because I would love to be traditionally published for a variety of reasons.
Right.
But of course, if it takes me a few years, maybe by the time that they would want me, they would even exist, because they seem to be on a very downward trajectory for traditional publishing lately.
Yeah, that's the one thing. Self-published has really taken off the last few years, and I think the stigma of self-published authors putting out shitty work is being broken by a number of people, especially in the fantasy genre.
Yeah, the sad thing though is that there's still so much shit being published. like like I at first didn't understand the negative stigma. I was like, it can't be that bad. But then I've read a few books, and I was like, oh my god, some of these people, well, they really should not have published. So then you see why there's the negative stigma, and it sucks because it's like you have like two sides. You have like the people who are really good, and they're like doing good things, and they're putting the proper effort and time into it, and then you have the other section who wrote their first draft, slapped a really terrible cover on it, and threw it out, and
Mhm.
you're like, ugh. And so it sucks because it can, if you don't know what you're doing, if you're just like a random reader, it can be really hard to figure out like where, like, the effort, I guess, like who has put in effort and who hasn't. I think that once you've kind of been doing it for a little while, it's like immediately very clear. You can just
Mhm.
start reading a paragraph or two, and you're like, oh, okay, we're good. uh, and then I think part of it also is self-publishing can be very expensive, and
Mhm.
if you don't have the money, then maybe you can't afford I don't know, whatever, a good cover, art, editing, whatever. And that's fine, but I just don't think that you should publish your first draft, at least. Please get people
Yes.
to look at it, and maybe try and edit it, and even if you use like pro writing aid or something, you just get some editing at least, and then once maybe you make some money, then you can afford a little bit more. But I think there's just so much. I forgot what the statistic is. I think recently I heard this on, I think it was a TV show. So this might be wildly wrong, but I think they said there was like 11,000 books or something published every day on Amazon, and I was like, my God. Um, whether or not that's true, I don't know because I didn't verify the fact, but I do know it's a stupid amount anyway, and so it's hard to sift through with all of that, obviously. Um, but I think fortunately for us, we have the community who, they'll read it, and for the most part, it seems like they're pretty supportive if it's a good book.
Yes. And yeah, I think that was one thing I didn't know when I came into this book community, was like how it was going to be. I thought I was just going to be another voice in the pool, but I feel like maybe I still am a voice in the pool to most people, but I feel like I can put faces to names on a few people and that I can actually call friends in this book community. So that was something that just blew me away, because again, I've kind of always been the antisocial guy, hence why I became an author.
But you're doing this. That's not a very antisocial move.
No, it was something I just had the idea. I was like, man, like I've read a lot of good books, and a lot of them came from that grimdark fiction fantasy readers and writers group. I was like, man, like Zamil Akhtar, Holly Tinsley, Sean Crow. I was like, you know what? I really want to help spread awareness for their books that I've read. So I started booktubing, weirdly enough. And so I guess I'm a booktuber now, as well as an author. And sometimes, I'll have authors like yourself who books I haven't read, but I've heard great things about that are on my TBR that I want to get to. It's just that when you're an author, it's hard to read.
Yeah, the TBR thing is a serious problem, even for people that are like binge reading like reviewers. They have crazy TBRs, and like as an author, when it's like your free time is, well, for the people that don't know this, when you're an author, it kind of takes, at least for me, it probably isn't the same for everyone, but for me, it's kind of almost the same creative type space. So it's like if I write a ton, I don't necessarily feel like reading a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I'll still read, but it won't be like a ton because I'm kind of just feeling fried. Maybe I'll just want to sit down and play like a video game or something that's like I don't have to focus on. When I say sit down and play a good video game, I don't have to focus on. I mean some mindless multiplayer game. I don't mean like a single player, like massive RPG where you have to pay attention.
Right.
Because that's, again, kind of the same brain space for me anyway. So it's like and I binge write, so I'll go for like a few months and I'll just write like 100,000 words, and then I'll take like a few months off because I'm like dead, and then I'll do like a whole bunch more work. It's weird. Uh, and I think that I totally lost where I was going with this,
Yeah.
but my point stands that I've mentioned already. Shit, I had a place I was going, and I don't know where it was, but the point is that it's difficult to do. Oh, that's what it was. It was reading. It's difficult to read a lot when I'm writing. Long story
Right.
short, there we go.
Yeah, I'm very boomer bust too in my writing cycle. I'm very like binge it, crush it out, and then it's like, okay, my brain's fried. Like I'm not gonna touch it for fucking weeks at a time. And the problem for me when I'm trying to write, is that I'll read someone's book. I'm like, man, that's such a cool idea. And then I just start fantasizing about my own books and how I can like, and I'm like, and I lose my place. I'm like, shit, I got to start over again.
Yeah, the writing process is interesting when you write like the binge when you go up and down.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, for my second book, I sent it to Sarah, and she was editing it. She said, "Your biggest issue is really weird," and I was like, "What's that?" And I was freaking out because when I edited the Trials of Ashmount, my biggest issues were massive, like just horrible problems that I had to go back and like rewrite many sections to fix. And Sarah was like, "Your biggest problem is that you killed this character off twice." And I was like, "Oh, that's it? Oh, thank God." But what happened was I wrote like the first 100-ish thousand words of book 2, and then I took And right at the end of those 100,000-ish words, I killed this character. And I must have just totally forgotten, because then I came back to write the next part a few months later, and I wrote the next, like, I don't remember, 40,000 words. And I got almost to the end of the book, and I was like, oh my God, I forgot all about this character. I need to kill him. So then I killed him. Well, the reason I forgot about him was because he was actually already dead. So that's the problem with the
Boomer bust.
Yeah.
And thank you, John. I mean, I don't even get into this to like start promoting my own work. It was mainly to promote other people's work, oddly enough, because like I don't know about you, but like I hate like tooting my own horn, like, hey, look at me. Like as soon as like even people like in my day-to-day life, like, oh, you wrote a book? I'm like, yeah, just don't talk about it. Here's the title. Google it, don't
So
talk.
I have a strategy. I don't know if people have noticed this or not. I talk about myself in my book a decent amount, like on Twitter, but I'm not. Okay, first of all, I'm not posting it on other people's stuff. So if you're asking for book recommendations and I post my own book, I don't do that. I think that's weird. I just, if I recommend something, I'll recommend someone else's book. I'm not trying to like just spam my book everywhere. But on my own profile, I post regular like updates. So I'll do like sales or ratings or news that's happening with stuff, just to keep the like my work out there without like feeling like I'm intruding on someone else's space. And it's not just like, oh, buy my book, here's a link to it. Oh, buy my book, here's a link to it. It's just talking about uh, stuff that matters to me in terms of like milestones or whatever. I think that the problem that a lot of indie authors fall into is they don't know how to like market themselves without being, for lack of a better word, annoying. No one cares about your book when you're just posting about like, oh, here's my book, buy it, here's a link. You need to have good conversation around it. You need to uh, kind of talk about other things. And I get it. It can be hard. It's really hard to keep talking about yourself for a lot of people. But I just think that there are tactics you can use without coming off as seeming like aggressively self-marketing or like being repetitious or really frustrating about it. Because I mean, that's my biggest pet peeve, is if I'm like, this is not actually about marketing a book, but when I post something like, I need this type of service, do you guys have recommendations? You get so many like,
Yeah.
I don't want yourself. Yeah, obviously you think you're good. Like, give me recommendations about other people. Like, uh, that's just a big pet peeve of mine. And it's the same if I asked for book recommendations. Like, I like grimdark fantasy, any recommendations? And then you're gonna get like a bunch of, yeah, my book. And it's like, yeah, but of course you think your book is good.
Yeah.
I think my book is great too, but I just think it's a little weird to do that constantly. It's, if you do it once or twice, it's not the end of the world. I think I've probably done it too, but to do it every time there's a post about it, it's like, guys, like, you're just coming off as like annoying. Like, I'm not trying to insult anybody, but I'm just trying to say that, like, if you see that constantly, for me, and I know it happens for a lot of people too, you kind of get turned off by that. You're like, I'm not going to read that person's work because they don't actually like have anything to say other than read my book. They don't support anyone else. They don't. I don't know. I feel like I'm rambling and I'm trying to get a point out there, and it's not really working. So I'll shut up.
No worries. I'm like, I've had a few people tell me like, AJ, like you're like the worst book marketer on the planet because like I'll talk shit about my books and like I'll basically talk people like in the channels here to not buy my books. I'll talk them out of it. Like, oh, yeah, like Mario, like in Oathbreaker, he's a very unlikable main character. You don't want that. You want to read, like John Palladino's Trials of Ashmount. Like, much better. Like, so I'm a terrible book marketer, so I feel that pain, and I just yeah, and I'm the same way. I don't want to post my shit very, very often. It's like, because again, like, it's not that I don't think my stuff's good. It's just that I'm always like, there's bigger fish in the pond.
Yeah, I'll never actually say that I write anything that's good because I'm too, well, first of all, I'm too self-critical. And
Yeah.
second of all, I can't stand the whole like read my amazing fantasy. And it's like, but you don't get to say that your fantasy is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's someone else to say that. Like, and I can't, and I don't want to overhype or oversell something. So I always try and downplay it like you do yourself. It's just like it's okay. I just
Yeah.
it's not that someone will post like you got to read this book. The Trials of Ashmount is amazing, and then someone will comment on that post and be like, "Wow, this book has been getting a lot of reviews lately, and I don't want to miss out, so I'm going to read it." And I'll comment like, "Well, it's not that good. It's good. I think it's okay, but like don't expect you're expecting too much here because I don't want people to go in expecting like a Game of Thrones and they're like this book is trash."
Like what I did on Twitter today, where I was like, the man, the myth, the legend. And like, yeah, I'm just a regular guy.
Yeah, see, yeah, exactly. That's a perfect example. It's like I have a hard time with that. I always want to just downplay everything because it's like I don't want to overhype myself or my books, and I'm always so nervous that that's going to happen because I don't know what you think, but I think
Yeah.
there's nothing worse than when you get a new movie. So let's say there's a new Star Wars movie, one of the biggest blockbusters ever, and it's coming out. Let's say it's out yesterday. So today we're hearing all the amazing. This is a 10 out of 10, best Star Wars ever, and you're super excited, you're super pumped, and then you go and it's like The Last Jedi, which if you liked it, cool. But I thought it was one of the worst movies I've ever seen, and so it's like, oh man, that just there's nothing worse than the crushing blow of disappointment when something is overhyped and you're
Yeah.
so excited and so ready for that thing. And then you're like, what is everyone talking about?
But you yelling, just as I just got the Trials of Ashmount from Silverstone Books, planning to start reading it in the next week or so.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And for anyone out there who wants to support an awesome store, Silverstone Books is an
Mm-hmm.
indie bookstore. They package your stuff in an awesome way. I can vouch for them because I've purchased from them before. Well, I guess saying I've purchased from them is a little disingenuous. I haven't purchased haven't purchased from Silverstones. I've traded. So they stock my book, as we
Mm-hmm.
just saw, and instead of paying me a couple times, I actually just kind of cashed in and got some books. So I guess take my opinion with a grain of salt. But I love it comes wrapped. They give you a bookmark. It's just a great service, and
Yeah.
Amazon keeps screwing up the listing for the Trials of Ashmount, so half the time you can actually get my paperback way cheaper at Silverstones.
Don't even get me started with Amazon. Holy shit. Like, I've had people try, like, AJ, we can't get, like, friends and family, we can't get your book. We can't get your book. Amazon keeps saying it's out of stock. I'm like, thankfully, I've gone like Indigo, like the big, I don't know if you have Indigo in the States. It's a
I
big, big
don't
chain,
know.
big
I've
chain bookstore. Anyways, it's nationwide, and I talked to a rep and they're like, yeah, we'll stock your book. We don't give a shit. And like, I was like, yeah, and I got like, and it's cheaper on there than it is on Amazon. And like, I know Silverstone's Books carries it as well. And I'm like, just support these other things instead of the giant conglomerate of Jeff Bezos's brain baby.
Yeah, Amazon is amazing in terms of reach
Convenience.
and convenience, and so I actually sell through Ingram Spark, and then
Same
go
here. Yep.
to Amazon, but there's so many issues with that,
Yeah.
and it's really a huge pain in the ass, and it's pissing me off because like my paperback price half the time, the retail it's supposed to be $17.99. It was the lowest I could get it with the size of the book that it is, where I could still make. I can't even remember what the royalty was, $2 or $3 a book. It was the lowest I could get without going into like less than $1, and then uh, at I can't remember. There's too many sliders, but anyway, it was. I think it was like worldwide. It was like I'm some markets I don't even make that much money, but it was like the lowest I could go while still making money in every single market, and for the size and the cost of the book. And so 17.99 is a little more expensive, I think, for maybe a debut paperback. I don't really know. I see some that are pretty cheap, some that are more expensive. But altogether, I thought 17.99 was not that big of a price. But fucking hell, half the time it's like $25 because it's not in stock and some other like
Yeah,
distributor is selling it there, and it's just so annoying.
yeah, it's truly a pain. John agrees with your Last Jedi. Um, I have a hot take for you. I've never seen Star Wars, and I have no intention to ever watch a Star Wars film. I
Wow.
just, yeah, I'm just like it. It sounds like the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Oh, like there's laser swords. Ooh,
Um,
yeah. So I'm
I
a little bit of a hot take there.
that's surprising. The original trilogy is usually cited as like everyone's favorite. I think it's really outdated and I'm a prequel trilogy fan. I know that's a hot take. But there is some really good stuff. I think the concept does sound really stupid. If you like sat down and gave it a shot, you'd probably like it. If you could get past, if you watched it in the order of release date, the first movie is really quite like boring and tropey compared to like most movies now. So you
Mm,
might struggle with that movie, and then after that, it gets a lot better. And then once you get past the original trilogy, if you're not already a lover of the original trilogy, you probably struggle with those three movies in general because they're so old now.
mm.
Uh, but they're necessary for the rest of the stuff, and then there's some really good stuff. The prequel trilogy is really good, and then The Mandalorian is an excellent show.
Yeah, I've heard good things. It's just for
But yeah,
me, like with the trilogies and stuff, it's like I've seen the Family Guy episodes. I know what happens. I have no interest in it.
Family AI episodes are they're pretty funny.
Yeah, it's
Um,
just yeah, it's one of those things. It's just I hate it's so hyped and it's so everyone talks about it that I for at least not the newer stuff. The newer stuff I have no idea what happens, but all like the
yeah,
old original trilogy, I know what happens in each film. It's like I don't want to sit through a movie that I know what's going to happen at the end. I want to be
I'm the same way. That's why I don't rewatch or reread or replay games. I can't because like I know what's going to happen and I get so bored. I
mhm.
think the only reread I've ever done really is I reread. For some reason, I can reread the Harry Potter books pretty okay and get a lot of enjoyment out of that. When the next, if, when and if the next Game of Thrones book comes out, I'll probably have to reread the at least the last book in that series to like catch myself up. And same with like Patrick Rothfuss. If he ever releases book 3, I'll probably have to reread the first 2 because it's been so long since I read those.
Yeah.
But I really hate rereading.
Yeah, I'm not a big rereader either, especially when it's my own work. Yeah.
Oh shit, I hate rereading my work. As soon as I finish the first draft, as soon as I say I finished my first draft, I'm 100% clocked out. I don't want to touch it ever again, but I have to
Yeah.
because, I have to. So I do. But everything, literally as soon as I finish writing it to the second I publish it, I hate everything about it. And then once it starts making me money, I'm happy.
Well, we went a little bit over our time. Thank you so much for staying late, John. I really appreciate it. Um,
That's fun. Thank you.
yes, just for anyone in the chat, also thank you guys for tuning in, guys and girls. Really means a lot that you would tune in and listen to us talk nonsense for an hour and 24 minutes and talk books. But for those that don't know, where can they pick up Trials of Ashmount, John?
You can buy on Amazon. The Kindle version is only 99 cents. I also have a paperback edition that the price continues to go up and down. If you want to buy it on Silverstone, at Silverstone's bookstore, that is great. And my hardcover edition just released, but I don't recommend anyone buys that until they see that I have good pictures of it, because I was supposed to get proof copies and they never showed up. And by the time I was going to move the release date of the book until I got proof copies, but Amazon apparently stocked the hardcover. So whatever it is what it is for at least the first few copies, and I'm hoping that everything came out well. I'm still battling with Ingram Spark to get the hardcover proof copies. Unfortunately, I have no ETA on that. So yeah, I don't know. Oh yeah, so silverstonesbooks.com is their
I just posted
website.
in the chat there, silverstonebooks.com, because yeah, they're a great store to support, and it beats supporting Amazon, in my opinion.
Oh, and someone in the chat did remind me, The Trials of Ashmat is also on Kindle Unlimited. Yes, so you can read it for free if you have it. I always forget that Kindle Unlimited is a thing because I don't use it. I've never used it. I've never thought about using it. I don't read enough to make it worth it. I think you have to read 3 or 4 books in a month to make it worth having. And I don't read that much. Like I read 1 or 2 books a month. So having Kindle Unlimited would kind of be like a waste of money for me. Plus, I don't read digitally anyway. I'm a physical reader.
Yeah, I'm a physical guy. I love like the tangible smell of the book, flipping the pages.
I can't concentrate on digital reading. I don't know why. Like I can read an article on my phone, but like to sit down and read a book, I can't do it.
Yeah, I'm the exact same way. But yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, John, for joining me.
Yeah,
it's an absolute pleasure having you. Glad we could get you back on after the Grimdark panel hiccup.
Yeah, it's too bad.
Yeah, no worries. But everyone take care and have a good night. Thank you so much.